Good afternoon, and welcome to the Glenn Gould Foundation's Promise of Music Forum. And our session today, on one I'm really excited about, is Music and AI, Threat or Blessing. And as I see folks coming in, I strongly encourage you to come right down front, even if you've already set up your tent somewhere further back. It's a large room. And you'll get a much better experience if you come on down front. We really appreciate it if you could do that. So my name is Glenn Morley, and I'm a past president of the Glenn Gould Foundation. And the foundation's mission is to extend global awareness of Gould's spirit and legacy by celebrating innovation and excellence, promoting creativity, encouraging cultural diplomacy, and introducing programs that demonstrate the power of music and the arts to transform lives. On the topic of transformation, nothing conjures up more interest, hope, concern, and controversy than the entry of artificial intelligence into every aspect of our daily lives, including music. So, with that in mind, please join me in a very warm welcome to our presenter for this afternoon, renowned composer, inventor, faculty director, and Muriel R. Cooper Professor of Music and Media at the MIT Media Lab, Tod Machover. I'm so embarrassed. Tod Machover.
Oh. Thanks, Glenn. Good afternoon, everybody. It's really a pleasure to be here in Toronto. I see some good friends here because I've spent time in Toronto, but I haven't been here for about 10 years. It's wonderful to be back. And I work in all kinds of different areas of music, a lot of them involving technology, some of them involving AI. But I am going to concentrate today on AI in music, kind of where we are now, where we might be going. Certainly what is kind of scary about what could be happening, and what are some possibilities to see things in a more positive view. I have a feeling you're a small enough audience we can almost have just a discussion, because I bet every one of you has a kind of different experience with AI in general, with AI in music, probably different concerns. So I'll try to leave a little time at the end so we can talk specifically about things that interest you. But I thought I'd start out with this guy. He's the reason we're all here. Anybody not know who that is? Shame on you if you don't. That's Glenn Gould, of course. And Gould was always an inspiration for me. I'm so grateful the foundation has put on this amazing event this week. And as Glenn and others have said, Glenn Gould was not only a great pianist, but a great humanitarian, an incredible philosopher about the role of music and the arts in life. And he was also somebody who was very, very tuned in and visionary about technology. So as you might know, there's Gould. I should have asked if you knew what date he actually stopped performing. But Glenn Gould was a wonderful performer, but he decided in 1964 that he didn't really like the whole act of getting up in front of a live audience and showing all your passion and your musicality directly. He understood profoundly what the power of recording was, that you could be private, record and register your ideas about music, do some editing to get exactly the performance you wanted. And so for the rest of his life, about half his life, he didn't do any more performance at all. He only recorded in the studio, both piano performances and radio performances. So he really had this visionary idea of how technology could capture a perfect music idea and communicate it. If you haven't read an article that he wrote in 1966 called The Prospects of Recording, that's part of your homework. There are 2 or 3 articles I'm going to mention that you should really look at afterwards. This is a great article, and it talks about why he stopped performing, what you can do in the recording studio, but he went further and further, and this article's been an inspiration to me for years. I was a kid when this came out, and the boldest thing that he said in that article was that a lot of things that we think of as negative about technology can actually be turned into something positive. So in the mid-'60s, do you all know what Muzak is? It doesn't even exist anymore. Who doesn't know what Muzak is? Yeah, a lot of people. So Muzak was a kind of commercial background music. It was actually a company called Muzak that used to make music for shopping malls and restaurants and elevators that was really middle of the road, not interesting music to create a mood. You weren't supposed to pay attention to it. And most people thought really, really disparagingly of Muzak. But Gould, always being a radical, said that Muzak actually can be something wonderful. And he posited the idea that what would it be like if we thought of Muzak as a kind of surrounding audio environment that could train people's ears? And what if we had Muzak playing everywhere, and instead of it being something you weren't supposed to notice, maybe it could help you develop finer idea of what note was what, or how different melodic lines fit together, or how harmony worked. And maybe it could be playing at home, so little by little, your ability to actually hear music, but also to hear the world around you, could be incredibly finely tuned. So his idea was Muzak could open people up to the possibility of the power of audio. And there's this statement at the end of that article, which says that in the best of all possible worlds, art would be unnecessary. It would be unnecessary because we've been trained through this ambient sound. Its offer of restorative placative therapy would go begging a patient. The professional specialization involved in its making would be presumption. And he ended with this incredible statement, which I've never forgot since that time, which was the audience would be the artist and their life would be art. So his idea was music isn't just something that in itself allows us to think and feel deeply and to connect with others, all the things we're here to think about. It's something that actually trains us to be more alive and more fulfilled in the world in general, maybe to the point where we don't even need music. It's a very, very beautiful, profound idea, I think. And I wanted to start with that because it's worth keeping as a goal of how important music is in our lives. And so I guess my question is, how do we go from that to this? Anybody recognize this person? Nobody. You do? Are you that person? No. You look, no. Yeah. So this is Tilly Norwood, and she's an actress who is completely AI fabricated. There's no human being behind this at all, completely made by algorithms. And she's gotten so popular that a couple of weeks ago, she got signed to one of the top Hollywood talent agencies. So she has an agent booking her for dramatic films. I guess she likes kind of rom-com dramas, maybe as a host on a TV show. So I think this is kind of crazy. Somebody who doesn't even exist, who has agency in the world, and is being treated as a big financial commodity. And if you follow AI in general, you probably know that OpenAI introduced a new platform just about a week ago, I think, not that long ago, maybe less than a week, called Sora. And Sora is the most powerful video creation platform. It's used to create video from scratch, just from text prompts, but it's also used to take existing video and to extrapolate from it. If you haven't seen this, here's just one little clip of Martin Luther King and John F. Kennedy transformed through Sora. So I'll play it for you, and then we'll see what that means.
I have a dream that Sam Altman saves humanity.
All right, Mr. President, the blender and the set of cookware. What's your bid?
Well, Bob, in the spirit of fiscal responsibility, I'm going to say $800 each.
$800.
So you've got Martin Luther King saying that he has a dream that Sam Altman, who's the head of OpenAI, is going to save humanity. And JFK, of course, is on The Price is Right, which he never was. So this is here. This isn't something to speculate. And this is the ability of AI to create amazingly realistic things that don't exist, that could be used for any purpose, that are quite easy to make. You could, if you can look up Sora and make your own videos of, your friends, people in this room, very quickly. And there are huge questions about why would you do that, and what are the ethics, huge questions about the ethics, and how to control this and how to shape it. So I think it's kind of a dangerous direction. What does this have to do with music? Suno, so I've been in this field for a long time, and I've seen all kinds of transformations in music and technology. The biggest transformation was in the early 80s when the personal computer came out, the same year that Yamaha put out the first digital synthesizer, so you could have a computer on your desktop to make computer music, and MIDI was invented, the interface between any computer and any music instrument. So all of a sudden in like 1983, 84, technology went from being only available in the largest university research labs like Stanford and MIT and Princeton, and were available to everybody. And that led to the point where over the last 20 or 30 years, you can't really make a recording anymore, let alone make a commercial music and even classical music without there being technology in the loop somehow. But what's happening in AI now is moving so fast, and it's changing things so much more that we have to pay attention, and we have to decide what to do about it now as just members of the public, but certainly anybody who's involved in the music industries. You have to think about this. So Suno is one of the relatively new companies. It's actually based in Boston. It started out teeny-weeny about 2 years ago, and now it's huge. It allows music to be created with prompts. Same thing. I'll show you a couple of examples in a minute. Incredibly easy to use. It's not very easy to customize. I'll talk about that in a minute. And it works on a subscription basis. So the general public, people sign up so that you can make songs and tunes basically to send to friends. But a lot of professionals use it to make interstitial music for commercial projects, background for film, bits and pieces of things that you might use in a more complicated project. So this person is Mikey Schulman, who's the CEO of Suno, and he said in public something that maybe he shouldn't have said out loud a few months ago, which was this, which is what he really believed, which is that people don't enjoy making music because it's too hard. So his idea is you need something like Suno to make music easy. And I guess I would say that that's kind of where things have gone wrong. Because I think that music is not meant to be technically hard. It's not so important that you have to study piano for 20 years. But music is meant to be a rich, deep, involving experience, not just clicking a button and it exists and you have an automatic experience. So it's meant to be rewarding creatively and deeply emotionally and mentally. It's made to make you think, and it's made to connect you with others in a significant way. So the idea that it's meant to be easy, I think, is one of the things that's really going wrong right now. As an example of the kind of tools that are available, a lot of you probably play with these. Every week, there's a new company starting out. Most of the commercial companies now are based on the idea of giving very little information and getting a lot of music. Most of them are based on databases. It's like a Cuisinart. You have to put lots of existing music into these systems. Once the music is there, most of the algorithms relate by making patterns, by looking at things that exist and being able to change them just a little bit, either to make a variation or to continue them. Most of these companies won't tell you what's in the database, so you don't actually know what's been sucked in. It could be your music, it could be anything really. And you can't change it once it's there, and there aren't that many things you can do to change whatever result it gives you. And you can do that with instrumental music. There are more and more vocal models where artists will license their voice, or just artificial singing voices are made that have personalities, and you can write music that will be sung by these performers. And you know, it's kind of amazing what can be done, but the limits are also really disturbing. So here's an example of a prompt which gave a little kind of weird poem, and just by changing the genre, by saying, like in this case, old-timey jazz, it takes about 30 seconds to make a piece like this.
Sentient toaster, microwave, opera, robot, uprising, mandatory polka, existential.
Take the same thing and ask it to add swing and vocals.
Sentient toaster, microwave, opera, robot, uprising, mandatory polka,
Or this is, type in something a little weirder and you get something strange. I see the people in the front row are smiling. I mean, it's not that bad, but it's not that good either. And again, if you wanted to go in and fine-tune it, there's really no way to do that. Same thing with classical music. You can give it a simple prompt like I put in high romantic classical symphony, full orchestra, and it made up this. Here's a little bit of what it made. Let me play a little bit more of that. Now I want to do this first. There we go. Not so bad, but not so good. Kind of boring. It meanders. It has that weird harmonic change near the end. I do admit I kind of started hearing this in my sleep, so it's like there's something about it that's a little weird. But the question is, if things keep going like this, it's very difficult to make things a lot better. There are a couple of other examples I wanted to show you. This is a PhD student of mine named Manaswi Mishra, who tests all of these new software and programs when they come into the MIT Media Lab. We try to evaluate them and make our own. One thing you can do now for these systems is instead of just giving a text prompt, you can give it music. So this is Manaswi entering a little bit of his vocals first.
Dum dum da 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 da, 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 dum.
So it'll pull that in. This is actually a newer version of Suno called Suno Studio. It'll pull the vocal in, extrapolate, make kind of variations on it, and build around it. So this has more levels. I'll let it play just for 15 or 20 seconds. You'll notice it's kind of cool, but it also just keeps repeating itself. It's pretty boring pretty quickly. How about these guys? How many of you have downloaded these people? No? I guess you're not in this. So this is Velvet Sundown. This is a band that appeared on Spotify about 6 months or so ago. And the band got popular really fast, and they were presented as a new band, kind of southern U.S. rock style. And they got really popular, millions of subscribers and followers, and little by little, it's still not 100% clear who they are. Well, they're nobody is who they are. It's a completely AI-made band, and there seem to be some musicians behind it who maybe make some prompts and shape it, but these people don't exist, and there's no recording studio. It's all generated by AI. So this music sounds kind of better than everything I played for you, but still it's generic. It's kind of disturbing. So here's a little Velvet Sundown.
Boots on the pavement, fire in the street. Flags wave high, but the truth's in defeat. Smoke curls slow from the preacher's hand.
Sorry to stop it. You could go find them on Spotify. So all of these current AI music software. First of all, it's developed faster than I ever thought it would. I don't like any of the stuff we just listened to, but it sounds a lot more like music than I would have thought it would three or so years ago. It's getting better pretty quickly, but there's so many limitations, and the way these systems are being built, if we don't change the way they're designed and the kind of aspiration we make for them, I think the music industry is in real trouble, because it'll be possible, it's already possible to create so much music that just isn't really very good. It's not very original, it's not very personal, it's not different, it doesn't represent somebody's kind of conviction that something to communicate is important. That's not the right way to go. And so I would say that even though it's getting better, there's something not right with this approach. And there are a few ways that I think we need to think about what should be changed. First of all, as I mentioned, everything I just showed you were all based on models. When we talk about a model in AI, it means what music or other information is given to the AI system before you start asking it questions and trying to pull out new things from it. And right now, everything that's accessible to you, first of all, it's very expensive and time-consuming to make these models. And if you were going to actually license officially the music that you would put into these models, which is what you should be doing, it would cost a lot of money. So most of these companies don't do that. They take music from anywhere, put it in the model. It comes out sounding like something you kind of recognize, but not exactly. You can't put your finger on exactly where it came from. It is impossible right now to trace back what's in the model. So I think to move forward, we have to make systems where, at the very least, you can decide the relationship between things in the models, what's more important, what's less important, how they connect, and also you can make your own. You can put in your own music, your own sounds, your own relationships, so that what comes out of it is based on something that you care about. And so as I mentioned, most of these companies, especially Suno, the one I showed you, is being sued by everybody right now. It's a huge lawsuit. It hasn't been, basically for the last year, the publishers and composers and recording studios, everybody has said to Suno, license what's in there, tell us what's in there. And they wanted to push it to a lawsuit. They said, we will not tell you, sue us. So they're being sued. Nobody knows quite what's going to happen. It probably will be settled, so there'll be some way of compensating for the music that's in there, but we don't know. So right now it's just bad. That shouldn't be happening. And if you think of it another way, though, this is, I just took a picture of this in my house the other day. I listen to lots of music, but I'm also an avid reader, and I have lots of books sitting around all the time. These are 3 that I'm reading right now, and they're pretty different. One's on Pierre Boulez, the composer, a new book on emotionality and intellectuality in his work. The middle one's on Jerry Garcia and how he influenced 60s culture in the US. And the third one is on Christopher Marlowe, great new book, by the way, by Stephen Greenblatt, about how Shakespeare and Elizabethan theater grew out of the work by Marlowe, who died at the age of 29. So no model in the world could tell you why those 3 books meant something to me and why I have them on my desk at the same time and what it is that connects the 3 of them, but they are connected. And one led me to the other. I read something and it illuminates something else. The way these connections work in your mind, the way music means something to you, the way you pick what's in your collection, what you listen to, is what makes you you. And if the systems that AI is based on don't reflect that, it's giving you back something that isn't you, it's somebody else. So you have to be able to personalize these systems in lots of ways. As I mentioned, once these models are made, all the systems I showed you right now, you can't change them. Not only can't you change them, you don't know what's there, you don't know how they work. You can't reverse engineer and say, well, if I ask this question, it's going to inspire the system to do something that is important to me. You're working in the dark. So I think the next thing that has to happen, and Google has started to do this. Google has a new system that just came out last week called Lyria, L-Y-R-I-A. And thanks to Google, it's a big, interesting system that is actually open source, and you can actually go in and build on top of it. You have to get a license for it, but we're just starting to explore it, and it's one very promising platform to think about for the future. But you have to open up what's in these systems, otherwise it's dangerous and not flexible enough, I think. And the third thing is that you've probably heard the term slop. You know, slop is the idea that it's so easy to create so much with AI right now that there just are mountains, I don't even know the word for it, gazillions of bits of video and text and images and music now that just flood our lives. And it's called slop because most of it is really awful and it's hard to wade through it. And we don't want a culture where that's what music becomes, that it becomes just a bunch of variations of not very interesting things that kind of iteratively get less interesting. We want to build systems that allow us to be creative, that allow us to make new things, that allow us to be stimulated, and that allow us to expand as humans. And to do that, we have to think about these systems differently. So, as I say, I've been working on these kind of things for a long time. That's me in the middle. And I got into this field a lot because of my parents. My dad was one of the first people in the field of computer graphics, and he's one of the people who felt that if computers didn't have a really intuitive way of connecting with them, that they wouldn't catch on. This was back in the 50s. So he had some of the first companies that figured out how to put images on computer screens, and he really believed that computers could be an extension of humans, and that if you had easy ways to use them, they'd allow us to express ourselves naturally. And so I grew up going to his factories and seeing these things built, and I agree with him. And my mom was a Juilliard-trained pianist who spent her career as a really wonderful music teacher. And she used to teach piano, but she also taught creativity to kids. I was the oldest in our kid in our family, so I was her guinea pig learning when she learned how to teach. And she would always, at the end of piano lessons, have us do creative projects involving finding objects in the house, making pieces with them, deciding how to create a story, how to make pictures of the piece so that you could remember them the next week, all of which taught us when we were really little that music was something that wasn't just made by a bunch of dead people, it wasn't just printed music, it came from the world, you could make your own system, you could express yourself with music, and you could just make a picture to remember it again. So notation also was something very natural. So I really believe that music should be accessible to everybody, that everybody can create. But the only reason to do that is to create in a way that's meaningful and significant, the best you can do, and to extend yourself. I've been doing my work for a long time now at the MIT Media Lab, in part of MIT, which is a particularly interesting place because it's vastly interdisciplinary. There's music, but also the future of learning, the future of medicine, a huge work now on AI. We actually have an area called AI and Human Flourishing, which is the general field of how to make AI that actually benefits people rather than makes us close up. So it's been a great place to do this work, and I think that we need as many interdisciplinary environments as possible. I'm actually going to visit parts of TMU tomorrow because I think that there's a lot of incredible creative interdisciplinary work going on here, also at U of T. It's the only way to advance, I think. You can't do it just within music, just within AI. One of my heroes, besides Glenn Gould growing up, one of the reasons I came to MIT was to be around Marvin Minsky. Marvin was the co-founder of the Artificial Intelligence Lab at MIT. He's one of the people who's thought of as maybe the father or one of two or three fathers of AI. And he also grew up as a piano prodigy in New York. So he thought his whole life about music as a model for how good AI could become. And he really thought that music was a particularly human activity, something that was still mysterious, both for why we have music and how music works, why it affects our emotions, how it makes our minds work. And so he was one of the most stimulating, inspiring people I ever met about music and machines. And Your next bit of homework is he did write an incredible article called Music, Mind, and Meaning, which you'll find online. And he wrote this great, I think it's one of the great books of the 20th century called The Society of Mind, which is his attempt to figure out how the mind works and then to express that in AI software. And what's so interesting about his approach to music is that all of the AI software that is available commercially now, most of it doesn't know anything about music. It's based on really pattern matching and finding, identifying a certain thing and seeing how you can make variations of it. But it doesn't know what a melody is, it doesn't know what structure is, it doesn't know what musical form is, it doesn't know anything about the relationship of music and emotion. And Marvin was trying to figure all of those things out. It's what you call deep AI. It's kind of out of fashion now, but I think we need to bring a lot of that perspective back into the field of AI and human studies in general if we're going to move forward. I believe enough in Marvin's work that I did a whole opera based on his Society of Mind called The Brain Opera, which allowed the audience to help create the final piece and was like walking inside Marvin's mind when you were at the opera. And here's just a little bit of music from that opera that I took from interviews I did with Marvin. So one of the first things I did when I got to MIT was I'm a cellist myself. This is Yo-Yo Ma as a young cellist. Yo-Yo turned 70 a few days ago, so none of us are that young anymore. But we did this project to build a special cello for him where we put AI into the instrument so that the cello could understand what Yo-Yo was playing, where he was putting his fingers, how the bow was working, but also what the emotion was behind the performance. So for instance, it could tell if he was building up to a downbeat on that note, and if so, it would do something special with that note just because of his interpretation. It might change the timbre, it might add a full orchestra, it might turn the cello into a voice, all because of the way he changed his interpretation. And we call that field Hyperinstruments. Here's just a little bit of Yo-Yo playing the premiere of this piece I wrote for him on the hypercello. Is that loud enough out there? It sounds a little soft up here. Could you please just bump the volume up a little bit? Are you saying too loud or too soft? Oh, it's good. Oh, all right, it's good. Maybe just a little more. So that was a single instrument for Yo-Yo, but we designed these intelligent AI-based instruments for all kinds of contexts. I do a lot of opera, projects that involve many performers and objects on stage, visuals. This is an opera called Death and the Powers, about somebody who wants to live forever. He figures out a way, he thinks, to preserve himself in the world. And so he says, well, I'm going to leave the world, I'm going to download myself into the environment, you won't know the difference when I'm gone. And the opera's actually about whether everybody who's left, his family, his business associates, his daughter, whether they think that the stage and the objects are Simon Powers when he's gone, or whether something's missing. This is the main character with his robots. That his robots are kind of his proxy when he leaves the world. And to make the opera work, the main character, James Maddalena, plays the main role. At the beginning of the opera, he says, "I'm out of here. See you later. I'll be here in the environment." And he actually goes down into the orchestra pit until the very end of the opera. He's there for almost the whole opera. He's in a little studio, and you can't see him, but he's wired up. So like Yo-Yo Ma, he has sensors which measure his gesture, which measure his muscle tension, which measure what's called galvanic skin response, which is how tense or relaxed you are. It measures his facial gesture, and of course it measures his singing. He looks at the conductor from the orchestra pit, but he can't see the stage. And with about 40 different computers, we measure everything that he does. We compare it to the score and what the musicians are playing, and his emotion. We basically measure his emotional change over the moment by moment and over the course of each section, and that gets reflected back on stage in the way the sound is mixed, the timbral colors, the way it moves around the hall, the way the robots move. They're all controlled by measuring his emotion. The set itself is a big robot, so the walls are moving around. So technically speaking, it is this man you're seeing on stage real. It's not a trick because of the way we're measuring him down in the booth. Now, is that him or is that not him? It turns out in the opera that everybody, all the other characters, including his wife, who has a kind of erotic scene with a giant chandelier, which turns out to be a robotic music instrument vibrating with his voice. The robots, everybody in his family, except for his daughter, actually think that, sure, that's him. Technology has reproduced him. And not only that, this idea of existing in a way where you can get rid of all the limitations of your body, death and pain and sadness, it's not a bad deal. So everybody in the opera, except for his daughter, follow him into this thing called the system. And the daughter confronts him at the end when he tries to pull her back. And here's just a little bit from that opera. There you've seen the whole opera in 1 minute. But the daughter, Miranda's the only one at the end who, even though he's trying to pull her into the system, this AI version of himself, she says, "I love you, Dad, but it's not you. Being human is more than what you can reproduce through this technology." And so she doesn't follow him into the system. She stays on Earth. We also use AI to create projects that indeed allow many people to participate. We created a series of projects called City Symphonies. The idea is to go into a city, to make a sonic portrait of the city that involves music, but also involves listening to the city to see what's special in a particular place and bringing that together. And then when we go to a place, we invite anybody in the city who we can reach and who's interested to participate in helping to make this piece. So the very first one of these city symphonies we made was right here in Toronto in 2013. Jenny Green, who was one of our closest collaborators on that project. Actually, give Jenny a hand because she helped make this whole piece, and I haven't seen you in over 10 years. But these projects are so exciting because, first of all, the idea of having people think about something profound that they have in common, no matter what their background is, culturally, socially, economically, musically. Everybody lives in a place, so everybody has deep feelings about what that place means. It's a way to share important things, especially if there are no words, if you're just sharing sounds. It's an incredible way to bring people together. And we do that by making a lot of tools that allow people to participate. So one tool is simply to go out with your smartphone or any recording device and collect sounds that are personally interesting to you or something that you think represent your city that would say something important about it. We make software called Hyperscore, which is mostly designed for young people, but people of all ages use it. It has a lot of AI in the software that takes many of the rules of music, especially the way harmony works and the way melodic lines fit together, and allows you to draw lines. Actually, you make the little dots are what we call motives. They're either little melodies or rhythms or harmonies. Each one gets a color, and then you draw with those colors, and you can make something which is crazy and chaotic and doesn't fit any of the rules of music, but you can also push a button that says, I want something in classical harmony or in jazz harmony or in other systems, and it will help coordinate to take what you've made and fit it a little more. We can transcribe that into regular notation, so I usually take these, pick the ones that seem most interesting, and turn them into music for the orchestra. You'll hear a bit of that in a minute. There's something called Constellation, which actually takes whatever sounds that we collect, it analyzes them, and categorizes them according to a variety of parameters, like loudness, softness, brightness, darkness. Is it a nature sound or a human sound or a musical sound or an industrial sound? It gives them colors. It puts them in a map based on similarity, but we can also say, put dissimilar things next to each other. And then just by moving your finger on a tablet or a mouse on a computer, you can make mixes of all these sounds. You can make your own personal mix, post those online so other people can hear your version of how these sounds fit together, and they get re-edited there. And there are many, many other bits of software. This is one that allows you to bend a line and then spray paint the line and actually make versions of the melody. This was actually the melody for the finale of this Toronto Symphony, so people could contribute their version of how they thought the music should develop. This is the kind of, it's not perfect, we keep developing these, but this is the kind of interaction that I like, where people have a lot of ability to make personal choices at many different levels and to end up with something that you really like and that feels like something you actually made and then can be shared in a variety of different contexts. Here's a little clip from, this is a little longer, about maybe 2.5 minutes, from the Toronto Symphony. Another fun thing that we did is we got permission to hook into the computer control for the lighting for the CN Tower. So we connected the CN Tower to the Toronto Symphony Orchestra playing in Roy Thompson Hall. And so you'll see it synchronized to the music. Was pretty exciting. You could see it in a broadcast and hear it when it was performed. So here's a little bit from a Toronto Symphony. Thank you. That graphic at the end, when I started the project, we actually made a kind of graphic score, an idea of what I thought the shape of the piece might be and what the sections might be, and I made a chord progression, and we shared that with the community and let people use those chords if they wanted, to think about the sections if they wanted. And we worked on it for about a year, and when the piece was finally made, we made a graphic version of what the piece actually turned out to be, and it was remarkably similar, actually, in the shape and the structure, and was really, really a great project. And I love this city. I'm so glad to be back. Let me just show you a few examples of the newest stuff, and then maybe we'll have a few minutes for questions. Right now, I really think of this field as making these AI music systems for discovery, to find things that you care about, to find things that are interesting, to open up your mind, to find things about your own music making that maybe you wouldn't have found any other way, to find things about music that you like that's different, and to do this in a way that it's meaningful and possible for extremely accomplished musicians, but also for amateurs, for kids, for anybody who's interested in music. So we're trying to build tools and make systems like that. And there are a bunch of different categories that we make these in. This is a system, a recent system that has an AI model, and we can actually change what the model's listening for. So you'll hear 3 musicians play little snippets here. The first time it has a voice which is trying to sing, but it's just kind of grumbling, trying to follow the musician. Then it gets a little closer, and by the time the saxophone plays at the end, it's kind of singing in a saxophone voice. But it's taking material from what's being played live. This example is from an opera of mine, a pretty recent opera about the limits and the potential for AI. And for this one, we made a special instrument. This was designed by one of my students named Nina Masueli. And it's just a plastic jar. The jar has all kinds of sensors in it which measure how it moves, how fast, what direction it is, the twist of the jar. And that jar connects with an AI model. And so, again, one of the interesting things about these models is that there's lots of interesting material in it, but there's so much and so many combinations that nobody can understand every possibility. So the way this jar works is it lets you explore to actually enter into the model and to find out what's there. And depending on what you like, it expands that area so you can explore that more. And in the opera, she comes on at a moment where her job is to see if she can take fragments of all kinds of unusual sounds and find how to build a human voice out of those. So this is Nina playing the jar and discovering a human voice. This next one, how many of you know Jordan Rudess? He's an incredible prog rock keyboard player. He started Dream Theater is the name of his band. He's been at MIT on and off for the last year and a half, working with my colleague Joe Paradiso and a couple of Joe's students, Lancelot Blanchard and Perry Nasik. And this is a different approach. What they've done is spent many, many hours with Jordan to train the AI model on the way Jordan improvises. the way he uses harmony, the way he bends melodies, to basically allow the AI system to have a lot of knowledge about this one particular performer. And it allows Jordan to improvise, and basically he generally improvises a melodic line, and the system tries to follow and fill in the harmony, and then, as you'll see, he'll stop, and the system continues, both in his style and musically in a way that it thinks it might want to be. And I'll actually let it stop twice. The first time it sounds like very, very fluid transition. The second time, it seems like the system ended up somewhere else, which could be interesting, but I think it's kind of jarring. So not perfect yet, but it's pretty interesting. This is actually getting a lot of attention, this particular system. Anyway, Jordan kind of went with it and jumped in where the system had gone. But that has a lot of promise. That's something that continues to develop. This is my student Manaswi again, and this I just filmed this on my iPhone just a few days ago. This is a performance which he gave at MIT, which uses a version based on that Google system, Lyria, I just told you about. So he built the system on top of it, and this gives him live control over the AI system. And it actually doesn't have so much interesting control, but it does have some. So he has two different models running at once, the two rectangular boxes. Each one you'll see there are a variety of sliders and also of qualities. The qualities have to do with which one is more prominent. They also have to do with the smoothness that it's playing, how close it stays to the original model. So you'll see him changing a little bit. And you just get a sense of how you can improvise with this kind of model. He also enters text prompts. In this particular case, he invited everybody, there's a QR code on the screen, and he invited everybody to download the app and then to type in their own prompts while he was improvising. So he would play, and then he would see somebody say something like, rainy day with smoke and I don't know, danger or something. And he would take that from the audience, type it in, and that was a way of, kind of an indirect way of having the audience influence the behavior. So here's just a little bit of Manaswi playing the system. Maybe I'm going to skip. I'm going to skip these two. It's the same performance, but I want to go to one last example. This is one of my last pieces, pretty recent. This is a piece for string orchestra and live AI system. And one thing I've been very interested in, kind of like with the City Symphonies, is thinking about the relationships between musical sound and natural sound, all kinds of different nature. In this particular case, I was thinking about rivers, and I actually went to Vermont and spent a couple of days recording many hours of a particular river. Here's some of that sound. And so, as I was mentioning early on in the talk, I built my own model for this. So I wrote music that was going to end up in the piece and music related to that, variations, had the string orchestra. This is Sejong Soloists, wonderful group based in New York and Seoul, Korea. And we recorded the music that I'd written. We recorded or took snippets of all of these river recordings that I'd made. And then I had a whole day of sessions in New York with the orchestra where I had them listen to the river recordings and then imitate the river with the strings, do variations based on that playing. To make these models, you need many, many hours in order to have the system make original material. So here's a little of Sejong soloists in their recording session, listening to the river and trying to make the strings sound like it. Kind of close, but that made recordings for the AI model that were in between river and strings. And now this is just a little snippet from the piece, and the way it works is that basically the live AI system is always trying to make some connection between the live string playing and these recordings of rivers that it has, and depending on what the strings play, it can be close, it can be further away. Manaswi's actually on stage tuning the system during the performance. And so here's a little bit of how that sounds live. With this piece, I wanted to try something new, which was to make an online version, which you can look up, it exists, where I took all of these models, I took the composition, and I made a couple of knobs, you'll see the knobs in a minute, which allow you online to allow this piece to play out forever with different variations. So the AI system is generating new versions of the piece all the time, but I wanted it to be versions that didn't sound random and didn't sound meaningless, that sounded close to the piece, but different in interesting ways. And so you can control how much string, how much river, how close to the original, how different, how calm, how complex, and things like that. And so here's a little example of that system with the two knobs being manipulated. And just one last example. Could you turn the sound up for the last example? It just sounds a little soft up here. And this is just one more section from the piece where the AI system is following what the live strings are playing and playing a flurry of notes in the right harmony to match what the strings are playing. And then the softer the strings get, the more it brings out the river from the beginning. So one last bit from the end of Flow Symphony. So to end, I'd say that I really do think we're at a kind of fork in the road for how AI and in music can develop. And it's a critical time because I think we want to have it develop in the most positive, creative, humanly rewarding way as possible. I think it can develop either by dumbing down music, by making it really easy to create lots of things that are not very interesting and not very original, but it also can enhance our creativity and enhance our ability to make things that we can't even imagine yet. I think there's a real possibility. Music's a great laboratory to make new ways of humans and machines, AI machines, collaborating, either live in performance, in making music in the studio, in producing, in learning music. So a real opportunity there. We want to make models and systems which are open-ended, which allow us to modify them, to personalize them, and to know how they work so that they're not mysterious and not closed. We need to build, like Marvin Minsky really aspired to, we need to build systems in music, but in all of these areas that know more about what it means to be human. In music, we need to know about the structure of music, how the emotional effect of music, the context. Without that knowledge, the systems will always remain automatic and machine-like and not very human. And lastly, we really want these machines to open our minds. I mean, I think we have an opportunity to have AI allow us to take risks and to be bold and discover things that we wouldn't have otherwise. So I think it's kind of important for all of us involved in any field related to music to work on these issues now, because AI is going to close quickly, and you know, it's up to us to influence it in a positive way. So we need to work on this, and frankly, we've got to do it now. I think we've got maybe 3 years, not too much more, to show models of AI systems that can be as musically rewarding and interesting as I think is possible. Thanks very much. I think we probably are out of time for questions, right? I think it's like right on time. So you say what? Okay, it sounds like we have time for a question or two, which would be great. Yes, and I think there are microphones. Yep, I think the person closest to you had his hand up first. Hey, Brian. Great to see you. But your mic's not on, I think. Probably not your fault.
Yeah, so congratulations on this. This is fantastic. I love hearing about the human-AI collaboration and the possibilities that are there. That's good. Thank you. And the possibilities of human-AI collaboration. As you know, Toronto's an amazingly diverse city. And I work with new music concerts. And we've been trying to put amazing musicians from different cultures together to collaborate on adventurous, detailed music. And as you know, a bunch of these musicians work outside of Western notation. So I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you know of any systems or AI or software that can help these kinds of groups get together to make detailed music together in an organized way, in a way that music notation would do, I would certainly find that very inspirational, and also to find some way we can get all these different musicians from different backgrounds and languages making music together with technology.
This is Brian Current, for those who don't, wonderful composer and conductor living here in Toronto. Great to see you. So, fantastic question. So let's work together on that. You're not going to find commercial software that's going to make that possible. I will say that from the very beginning, like 6, 7, 8 years ago, Google started a division called Magenta. Magenta still exists. It's not specifically a music organization anymore. But at the beginning, they were trying to find out how to make models of existing music instruments in particular. And the first examples they put out were always, how do you make a kind of, mashup isn't quite the right word. How do you take two instruments or two forms of expression which are really different from each other and make some synthesis of the two? So they put out a website with, like, how do you make a double bass and a piccolo hybrid? Or, how do you make an instrument from China and an instrument from the Middle East hybrid? And what was really interesting about them is that most of the hybrids weren't very good, but the kind of mistakes they made were always really interesting. And so I find that making synthesis and collisions is pretty easy with AI, and one of the interesting things is kind of where it doesn't go quite right. But a lot of these systems that we're making now are actually really good at trying to bring things together. They're not very good at making notation, if that's what you mean, because they don't know anything about, they basically take in audio, so they can't even tell you what notes were played. But I think something like what you saw Manaswi playing with, like something you build on Google Lyria, for instance. So I'd be happy to trade ideas with you. But I think Google Lyria is a really great platform to work with right now because it's powerful. It allows you to have multiple windows open at the same time running different models. It could have different musicians being listened to by different parts of the system. And maybe one of the jobs of the different modules could be, okay, take this performer and this performer, do a little variation, and if I open up the knob or if somebody plays in a certain way, let's be like a big magnet that pulls those two players together in some way. I mean, so I think they're Google Lyria, and yeah, I'd love to talk to you about this, though. It's a great idea. Thank you. Yep.
One of the issues that I think comes out of all this, and I'm sure you have thought a lot about it, is the legal context. And you talked about the big litigation against the company. I can't remember its name, but fundamental to the way art thrives in this society is that artists need to be compensated. And copyright is the fundamental basis for creators and composers. In a world of velvet sundowns, in which their music is essentially a pastiche, effectively, of inputs scraped off the internet, will copyright and can copyright continue to exist? And also, since some of the most celebrated litigations have been one group suing another for claiming that this progression or phrase was stolen from an earlier recording or piece, this is so open to being sued because it is by its nature stolen from, if you will, stolen or derived from pre-existing material. So isn't it true that Velvet Sundown is going to be sued by everyone who ever claimed to have written something earlier that was similar?
So I think the fundamental issue that you bring up, I think it's really serious, actually. And I think it kind of goes back to slop. I think, the more the field develops into it being incredibly easy to just make lots and lots of stuff that's sort of loosely based on something and you don't know what, I think it makes it really, it just makes it harder for artists, for people who really are trying to make something, and have the ability to create something original, to be heard, to be paid attention to, let alone to be compensated. And I do think it's a huge problem. There's maybe nobody agrees on the amount, but probably 30% maybe of the music on Spotify right now is AI generated, and it's not Velvet Sundown. It's stuff that it's really designed. I mean, a lot of the technology behind Spotify came out of my lab at the Media Lab, so I'm sort of for Spotify, but I'm really not for where this is going. And a lot of the music is basically meant to be listened to. I mean, Velvet Sundown was meant to be like a hit, and it's weird that could happen. And a lot of the music on Spotify is meant to be in your playlist, so that if you're at a party or you're with friends and you kind of pick a genre, there's a huge AI kind of market for making automated playlists now. Here kind of 5 songs you like, and now I've made 100 songs, some of which exist, some don't, some are AI generated, that will just play all evening because we think you'll like that. But of course, the incentive for a company to make lots of kind of okay sounding music that isn't copyrighted is that they don't have to pay anybody for it. And that's just not good. So I think, yeah, it's a combination of regulating. Right now, there are very poor tools to track what's actually in these models. So, but I think these lawsuits will, over the next year, open up the fact that if you put something in a model, you have to license it from somebody and you have to indicate what it is. And if that doesn't, I think that's why I think we're at a fork in the road, because if we find out in 2 years that, well, anybody can make an AI model and take the music from anywhere and don't have to tell you what it is, I think that's pretty bad. So I don't think we can let that happen. Is that, you had a question. Do you want to be the last question?
It's okay. Thank you, though.
You don't? Okay.
Yeah, I'm good.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you.